So I was actually 12 years old when I first heard of Baylor College of Medicine. We had to listen to National Public Radio on the way to school. And that particular day, Dr. Mark Kline, now the physician-in-chief at Texas Children's, was talking about Baylor's International Pediatric AIDS Initiative, or BPI. And that was the first time I'd ever heard of Baylor. It was the first time I'd ever heard of HIV or AIDS, and really kind of my first experience or exposure to medicine.
The next day I got a call from this young lady who told me that she had been listening to NPR and heard me talk about AIDS in Africa, and she said she was inspired by what I had to say. And I remember my first reaction was, this is pretty unusual, a young girl who listens to NPR, but we had a nice conversation that day.
Before I became a medical student, before I even had the thought of becoming a doctor, I was a musician. I still am a musician, but I like to think of that as my first career. And when I first interacted with Dr. Kline and learned more about BPI, my big contribution as a 12-year-old was, well, I can help you save the world and help you with BPI. But of course, that was a very tall order for a 12-year-old. And I found that my niche, or the way I could help, was through my music. And Dr. Kline was the one that suggested that I perhaps do some benefit concerts and play South Indian music, which was what I had been trained in, as well as jazz, and use my performances as a forum to discuss BPI, how they've grown, what they're doing, and to talk to peers, children my age, about what AIDS is, what HIV is, and how we can make a difference. My first few days of medical school were, I guess, daunting would be the word I would use. I found myself looking to my peers, to my mentors, to kind of guide me through this big change in how I was learning and what I was learning. And over time, I guess daunting turned into more exciting, turned into more interest in learning things, as opposed to feeling nervous about how much I had to learn. So I'll be here for, at the very least, the next 5 years at Baylor and Texas Children's for my child neurology residency. The way that I have grown to learn, the way that I have realized my strengths and my weaknesses has all come from Baylor. So I can't really imagine furthering my training any other place. Aside from my parents and my younger sister, the one person who has been a part of this journey so completely is Dr. Kline. The moments of I got this anatomy test back and it was not what I hoped it would be, Dr. Kline was there. And the moments of I matched into my #1 choice and I am just over the moon, Dr. Kline was there for that.
I'm just so proud of her. She's a multi-talented person who could be doing anything she wants, but she has such a good heart, and the expression of that is her desire to practice medicine. And she really is going to be a point of pride, I think, for Baylor College of Medicine for many decades to come.
So far, my experience in medicine is as a student, and that's going to be a lifelong experience. And my experience in music is not just as a student, but as a performer and seeing it as a career. But I think the one thing that really has tied both those experiences together for me is the mentorship aspect. I grew up with amazing mentors. I started learning before I could even really form full sentences. And that concept of mentorship and teaching and imparting knowledge is really similar in medicine as well. I found that here at Baylor, I've worked with some of the most amazing doctors, most amazing physicians, ones who are really excited not only to make new discoveries, but to impart their knowledge to the next generation of physicians. And I found that mentorship really is what makes a musician or a doctor.